This is Melissa Ford Luckin.
Rosalie Petrowski.
Susan, Seraph, and Jess.
Editors for the Washington Square Review.
Washington Square On Air
Showcases the poetry and fiction
Of the latest edition of LCC's literary journal,
the Washington Square Review.
read by the poets
Authors
and editors themselves.
expect the unexpected.
as our contributors express
Experience and fantasy with humor,
Imagination
poetic license.
irony
and passion.
If you love language,
at its most original.
Please join us in our Audio Town Square
to celebrate a community of writers
Spanning from around the world
to Lansing.
Hey there, this is Melissa Ford Luckin, editor of the Washington Square Review. I'm here today as a faculty person. I've got two students with me, Lauren and Zoe. Hey Lauren, how are you doing?
I am doing good today. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got here to LCC?
So, throughout high school, I was kind of just figuring out what to do with my life, and I still don't know, to be honest, but I wanted to go to like a college that would get my needs and that do everything that I needed to do to figure out the next steps. And I was looking at other ones that were like $20,000, and I was like, that's a lot of money. I don't have that right now. And they weren't even providing me scholarships. But then I got the honors scholarship from LCC, which provided me with almost a full ride and full cost taken care of. So I was like, I'm going to go here because for one, my parents went here, my sister went here, and it was just kind of okay, this is kind of new to me, but it's not new to them. So I can always ask them questions and just figure myself out from there. And my twin brother also goes here, so it's also nice being able to connect over that with him. So yeah.
For sure. What high school did you go to?
I went to DeWitt High School. It's a big high school. It's very competitive in certain aspects. We have a lot of state championships, a lot of different things. We're just top academics, top sports. We try our best. We're even building or trying to build more houses and apartments as I speak, because people just so badly want to live in DeWitt and get a better education or something like that, and they want to be a part of the programs that we have. I was part of the marching band, and we won state championships in 2021, and then this year they won state championships again. And so people just want to be a part of the winning team or the good side of things, I guess. So
Was that stressful?
At times. My junior year was the most stressed I've ever been in that aspect, and that was the year that we won. So I guess it was a bit for a good reason, but my senior year is still stressful, but I just learned to have the fun finally my senior year. So eventually the stress kind of gets overcome with enjoyment. So
All right. I'm curious about that stress, so I may come back to that. But Zoe, talk about your high school era.
Yeah, so my high school era was not spent in Michigan. I grew up overseas in the South Pacific. So very different than here. And I was homeschooled in my house with my two little sisters. So I know a lot of homeschoolers in Michigan have a different experience being with co-ops and things like that. But I was very isolated. So yeah, it was me and my parents just kind of figuring out. We had a curriculum that we bought from the States. So we just, worked through the books, and it was a little bit self-paced, but my mom was pretty strict and on get your stuff done. We weren't showing up to school in our pajamas at 10:30. It was real school kind of. So yeah, that was high school really was just kind of like every other era of my school life, because from year to year it was the same. I had the same teachers, I had the same classmates. So yeah, they got a little bit older, and eventually they started doing school. In the beginning, my littlest sister would brush my hair while I was doing school, and then in the end she was more of a classmate and also doing things with me. But halfway through my junior year, we moved back to the States. So that was December of 2020. So everything was shut down. It was still COVID, it wasn't after the pandemic yet. And it was very weird because the country that I was in didn't have COVID until 2022. So we just weren't affected by it. And we came back and like the whole world had changed here. And I hadn't been here since 6th grade. I went to Bath Middle School in 6th grade. So I kind of had an idea of what school was like in the States. But then coming back, it was just like everything was different and everyone was different. And yeah, it was weird. So it being halfway through the year, we just continued doing homeschool. And then for my senior year, my parents talked about, sending me to school because I'd always thought I would go back to Bath and graduate there because our plan had been to come home when I was in 10th grade. And then that didn't happen because of COVID. So senior year, I was still homeschooled because the schools, it was still like hybrid kind of thing. Some people were in school, some people weren't. There'd be school and then someone would get sick and the whole school would shut down for 2 weeks. So it was just easier to just finish homeschooling. So that's what I did. And yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where you were living.
So the country is called Vanuatu, and it's it's directly west of Fiji, between Australia and Fiji, little like northeast of New Zealand. And it's only been an independent nation for 40 years. It was English and French colony. So half of it was English, half of it was French. I lived in the English half, but like right on the line. So some of my friends went to school in French-speaking schools. Half of the country is educated in English and half is educated in French. So I took some French in high school. My dad taught me. He lived there in France for a little while. So he taught me French, but I didn't learn it very well. So yeah, that was my...
Okay. All right. So Lauren, you were talking about the stress part of school. Was that more for marching band or was that the academics or where did that come from?
It was everything, to be honest. Junior year of high school is one of the most stressful because you have to take the PSAT in the fall and then the SAT in the spring. And your mind's already on that. And then you have to start choosing colleges and that's on your mind. And then along with like that, my older brother, he was in the military. And so him being gone from home was just like a different sort of thing. And it was something I hadn't like experienced. I hadn't experienced like my siblings going away long term. Like my sister went to college for a few months, but decided to come back home. And I still like missed her, even though I could call her. And I couldn't even call him because when he was like in boot camp, he didn't have his phone and I knew he was going through all these things, but like I still couldn't contact him. So I would just like sit in his room and kind of just like think about just him and just talk to him, I guess, in my mind, if that makes sense. And so him being gone and also I'm just like struggling with like figuring out what to do with my life, because that's what teachers were always saying to do, is that you have to figure out what to do, because we did this job shadow. Like I did a job shadow in like March of I think 2020.
What was the job?
I rode on an ambulance with some paramedics. It was a very interesting experience. It was fun, but it was still, we had to get so many things done in the junior years just so we could figure out what to do, like what our next steps were going to be. And so it was just stressful. And then along with that, we had marching band rehearsals on Monday nights. And then we had like marching band was a class at my school. So we had every day before lunch, we had an hour and a half of marching band, and then we went to lunch, and then that's all we were thinking about for like the rest of the day. And then we had competitions every Saturday, football games sometimes every Friday, and it was just like, so everything was building up, and it was just the stress of it.
That sounds really like a lot. I wish I could go back in time and visit and tell you it's going to be okay. Some people don't realize how physically and emotionally and like intellectually challenging marching band is. I mean, because what instrument did you play?
I was in the front ensemble. So I played a marimba my junior year. And that was the most important, like one of the most important instruments. It was in the front. It was in front of everyone. And so I had to play with like 4 mallets, and that caused a lot of stress on your hands. You get calluses, you get blisters. And so it was a lot of like physical pain on my hands. And then throughout the season, it was stress of like, you have to do this, you have to do this. When I was like never really trained how to like play it, I kind of taught myself how to do it, because it was like the COVID year was the year that like I first made that like marimba line. And it was because I was like one of the only people who tried out. And so I just taught myself how to do the formats. No one taught me how to do that. And so trying to figure it out my junior year when we were more competitive because COVID, we didn't compete. We were just playing at football games. It was just that stress was like building, and like our section leader and people in our section were kind of just like at odds. And so they were kind of fighting and arguing. And it was just like, I felt like I was in the middle of that because I was friends with the person who I was on marimba with, and then I was friends with the people who were fighting with that person. It was just like having to figure out that whole like friendship relationship. It was also a big part of that.
It does sound difficult. What kind of academics were you doing, and how did that contribute to the stress?
I can't remember. I think
You'll be surprised. Many people say the same thing.
Well, I know I was, because like that's the year you also take a lot of your main classes. Like senior year is the year you're kind of trying to have fun, but I think I was like taking chemistry, physics, an algebra class, and then I think I had like some other electives, but I can't exactly remember. But it was just those specific classes. Not that I struggle with them, but also I took 2 science classes at the same time, and you don't want to do that in high school because they're like, I take them for 18 weeks, and then you're like, you have to take a final, and it's just they're both at the same time, and you're just like, these are both science classes, and I don't know what I'm doing. Do I even want to go into science? Probably not. Like, it's kind of, they were required, so it's just.
Well, I have to ask about writing. What kind of writing did you do?
Oh my gosh. Writing. Oh yes. I took that English class that year, and English, we have like English 1 through 4, and then we can take like AP Ling and AP Literature. And so I took English 3 that year, and can't remember the essays I wrote. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think one was like a research essay, and I've always been like good at writing. I've been good at reading and writing. I'm always like in the like A-, B+ range. And I've always like enjoyed it, but if it's like a research paper, I'm always just like gross.
Why?
Because I just don't enjoy research all the time. It depends on the research, and it depends on if the topic is like, oh, you can pick your topic, which I think you could, but like it's also if you have a certain list of topics you can pick from. It's like, I don't want to do any of these, but I have to do one of these. And it's just like, sometimes it was just, in high school, it was just, oh, get to the end date and turn it in. It wasn't enjoy your life. It was more just like, get it done. So
kind of just going through the steps.
Yes, very much so.
Zoe, what kind of writing did you do?
I did a lot of writing. The curriculum that I did was very writing heavy. And I spent every summer in Australia where my dad taught at a linguistics school, and Australian schools are very heavy on writing. So that writing was very just emphasized in my high school career. I was trying to think of something specific that I wrote. The first one that I thought of was a research paper. I wrote it about the history of the gold rush in Australia. So there was a gold rush in the area that I spent my summers, and I wrote that here in the States. So it was winter of like probably 2021-ish. And yeah, everything had kind of, my whole life had changed. I'd moved countries, and we stayed in one house for like 2 months, and then we had to leave because there were other people that were coming to live there. And so we moved really abruptly again. And so I think I had a lot of fun with that project because it was about Melbourne and about, the place that I felt every summer like I was coming home when I went there. So yeah, it was interesting just to learn about that history and how it affects what that place is like now, and then seeing how my life there could, it was still connected to me, and it was still part of me, and I could still write about that and be connected to it even though I was on the other side of the world.
So you can relate to what Lauren was saying about if you're not interested or connected to your topic, right, it's much harder to write about it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the essays that we've been writing for our class, which is Composition 1.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the essays, like all of them, or just?
Well, pick one. Which one kind of stands out in your mind at the moment?
It's so difficult.
Because they're all wonderful, right? It was a great experience all around.
I like them. writing 2 is definitely my least favorite because it was more of a research paper. But I guess I enjoyed it because I still connected to it. But writing 1 and 3 were my favorite ones. And writing 1 specifically, since it was like a personal narrative, I feel like I connected to that one more. But for my writing 3, I think it was better than my writing 1 because I'd been writing more essays and I knew a bit more how to write a college essay and how to like connect more. But my writing 1 was just like more personally for me and just kind of like explaining how I became, I guess, me as a Christian through like out my faith, how I became stronger in my faith. And then I guess 3 was a bit of a continuation from that, where it was just like, this is my faith, but I want to figure out why this is happening within like Christianity and within just all of the above and everything like that. So, and then like my writing 2 had nothing to do. It was about tipping, and I was just like, okay.
Did you do any reflective writing in high school that you remember? Because our writing 1 is a reflective personal narrative, like you said, where you're thinking about yourself and evaluating.
I definitely did. I can't remember exactly, but in my AP Lang class, my teacher, he said notes or said little like letters to all the seniors because he's like, you're leaving, so I'm going to give you like this last little hurrah before you leave. And he said, he told me that I don't exactly follow the rubrics, but he can tell I have a lot of passion and I write with my heart. I don't write with like what's outside. I write with what I want to, and I don't really care about what it is. I'll write. And so I think that definitely reflected throughout my writing is that he could tell I cared about my family. I cared about like everyone I love. I cared about my faith and everything like that. So yeah.
All right, Zoe, what about you?
Yeah, it's hard to choose. Because legitimately I did enjoy all 3 assignments because they were different, but there was something fun about each of them. I think like what Lauren was saying about connecting to your topics, one of the hardest parts of the writing process for me is choosing a topic because I don't want to write about something that I don't care about. And probably, yeah, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing when it comes.
I think it's a really common thing.
When you have like a deadline and you're like, I gotta pick a topic, and it's really stressful. But when I find that thing that I'm like, this is what I'm gonna write about, I enjoy the rest of the process so much more. So for each of them, I ended up picking something that I did care about and that I connected with personally, but that was a hard part of all 3 of them. But because I was able to do that, they were each enjoyable. And I think what Lauren was saying too about how she writes with her heart, I've read some of her stuff. It's very true. She definitely does. And I'm definitely more of like a heady person. You know, I think through my emotions more than like feel them. And so with all 3 of the assignments, I felt like I was able to kind of think, reflect, like what the first one was a personal narrative. So I was able to think through and reflect on why I love writing so much. And so I connected it to a story that my dad told me when I was really little and how that kind of set me on this path of wanting to be able to write and tell stories like he told stories to me. But I'd never made that connection before until I was able to think that through the writing. And you'd said something at the very beginning of the semester about thinking through writing rather than like thinking about what you're going to write beforehand and then writing it, which is how I'd always, in high school, I was very planned out. Like, Here's my outline, here's my thesis, this is everything. But I learned how to be a little more free-spirited with that in this class and having my thesis, but then kind of thinking as I'm writing instead of planning it all out. And I was able to make more connections than I think I would have if I'd stuck to my guns with my high school idea of how to write. With writing 2, it was more of a research one, but I do like the research and the seeing what everyone is saying and then kind of putting it all together. So that one I picked a topic that had to do with me because it had to do with my name. In Michigan, you can't have symbols in your name, and my name has 2 dots over the E, but that's illegal. So I think that's dumb. And I decided to write an essay about it. And so that was interesting because it was something that, I really care about. And then with the third one, we had to pick a pop culture artifact and write about that. And that one was probably the hardest for me. And
why was it hard?
I think because I lived on a rock in the middle of the ocean for most of my life. And I'm like, you were giving examples. You're like, you can write about Taylor Swift and the football guy. I was like, I don't know who that is. Like, I literally didn't know Taylor Swift had a football boyfriend until you said that. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So that was kind of I think it's like the initial daunting of you have to write about a pop culture thing. I'm like, this isn't. There's a lot of things about this culture where I'm like, this isn't even my culture. Like, I don't know what's happening. So I think that was initially daunting. It helped that the new Little Mermaid movie had just come out, and that was like my favorite childhood Disney princess. I like distinctly remember sitting on a train in Australia on my way to the big city. We'd go every weekend and just have fun. Those are some of my favorite childhood memories. And we'd ride the train, and the train was great. And I remember watching The Little Mermaid or playing some like Little Mermaid video game on the train. So like that has, it has that deep connection for me. And I just seen the live action remake, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. So that was helpful. Good timing. But that was harder.
Talk a little bit about the research you did for the papers.
Honestly, I don't remember how I got to where I did. I knew I wanted to write about that because I knew I would be the most familiar with that artifact of pop culture. But I didn't know what I wanted to say about it. So I went into my research with an open, curious mind, like you always tell us to. And I was like, okay, let's see if this works. And in my initial reading, there was lots of stuff about Halle Bailey being a Black actress and how some people are like, that's great. And other people were like, that's stupid. And, there was a lot of sides to that argument. And it just felt like everybody was talking about that. And I was going to just be another voice that was lost. And I didn't want to write about that. So I don't remember how I started thinking about multi-generational relationships, but that's what I started thinking about.
Well, I think because you went in with a curious mind.
Yeah. So I was trying to look at the movie just in a different way. And I started to notice the things that hadn't changed between the animated and the live action remake. Because the thing that had changed was like everybody was talking about, oh, they changed this, oh, they changed this. But that kind of relationship between Ariel and her dad hadn't changed. And they were still, as part of the story, like you can't really change that. But I started to think about what that says about American culture and how older people and younger people and their relationships with each other are presented in media. And coming from a culture that is not, it's very different in Vanuatu how that is represented. And so I started doing some research about that. And I don't even know if it was really directly related to the paper at first, my research. I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to procrastinate on writing this paper and do some research about generations.
It was still research.
It was still research because I ended up using it. But I think at first I was thinking this isn't going to go anywhere. And then I discovered that age segregation in America, so that's like how people of different ages live really separately, is similar to the segregation between Hispanic people and non-Hispanic people. So suddenly this conversation about race connected to my conversation about multi-generational interactions in The Little Mermaid. So I was like, oh, I could use this. So that's kind of, then I went into all of that and how America came to be so separated, because in Vanuatu, it's not that way. Everybody lives in the island I grew up on is 2 miles around, and about 1,000 people live in 1/3 of that space. So there's no growing up and going away. Like you stay in your little family clan for better or worse. And but in America and in the end of The Little Mermaid, she goes off on her grand adventure and her dad sends her off, and people in the States get sent off to college, and that's just how the world works here. But it's not like that everywhere else. So it was interesting to look at some of the pros and cons of that.
Well, you did a really good job of revealing how ingrained it is in our culture, that it's an assumption and it's valued. It's not questioned. Mm-hmm. So I think what you did was really beautiful because you took your own personal experience and your own thoughts and just opened the door and wandered in the darkness until something came to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I talked to a writing center advisor about, I had like a rough draft that was all over the place. I was like, I need help with this.
that's a very normal step in the process.
Yes. And that, like, kind of showing how ingrained it is, that part was pretty solid already. I was just trying to figure out how to connect it to the movie. So I got her help with that. But she was saying what you said, how, oh, you really showed how this is ingrained. But I'd never realized it before. And I was like, what? Because in my mind, it's glaringly obvious. And so, yeah, I think part of the reason I enjoyed the third writing so much was that I felt that I had something new to bring to the conversation and a new perspective. And that, made me feel like, oh, this is worth my time to write this.
Yep. Well, we definitely talk in class about looking at the discourse and finding the piece that's missing, and that's what you did. That's cool.
It was exciting.
Yeah. You did the same thing, Lauren.
Yeah.
Let's hear about it.
Just like the research process and everything.
Yeah, like how did it happen for you?
To be honest, I don't know. I just searched stuff up on YouTube.
Okay.
And I found videos, and I couldn't use some of them because they were like very obviously biased. And I mean, I could have used them, but it was just like no. And then there was a video I was gonna use, and then I go back to it to put it in my paper, and it's not there anymore. It's like hidden,
so bad.
and I'm just like, oh, I think it was like the one I even showed in class for like the presentation that I did, and I'm just like, how did it get taken down so quick? And I'm pretty sure it's like been up for a while, and so it's just like,
Was it controversial?
not exactly. It was just about celebrities talking bad about God, and it was just, I guess they could have taken it down, but also it didn't have like, it might have just had like 100,000 views, and that's not that many today. So it's just,
Tell us about your topic.
honestly, my topic is very up in the air because I was writing my paper and I was just like, so this is my topic at the beginning. Like my topic was, oh, Christians like getting hated for believing in God or getting hated for like believing what they want to believe. And then in the end, I was just like, love and kindness is the true answer. And I was just like, what is my thesis? What am I going to name this paper? And I'm just like, so I guess it's kind of just the name of my paper is The True End Goal. So I guess the topic is like what people should want in the end instead of what people have in the end. Like people should want to love other people and be kind to other people and care for other people no matter what they believe in or who they are. And they shouldn't be hating or judging people because you really don't have the right to judge someone when you've done other things wrong as well.
Well, it's looking at a kind of a hypocrisy that most people will say, yes, I want, kindness and love and happiness in the world and in myself. But then when you go online and you look at videos, that's not what you're finding.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, it is a very controversial subject because not a lot of people want to talk about religion, especially like when you go to college. Sometimes people are very just like, there's a lot, you find a lot of different people. And as I was in high school, like that's kind of like what started it for me. That was what my writing one was about, is because I was kind of like getting not exactly bullied, but also kind of bullied about what I believed in. People were just like not people. There was this one kid that was just like, God's not real. Like, why do you believe in that? It's stupid. And I'm just like, well, that's your opinion. Like, it kind of just like, it wasn't just like a one-time thing. He would continuously like beat me down about it. And I was just like, well, it's my faith. Like, I'm kind to you. I don't judge you for who you are. I literally, like, I have some amazing people who aren't Christians. I know people who aren't Christians, and I'm still like really good friends with them. And so it was like, that was kind of the beginning of it. And then what was the question again? Sorry.
I think I'm just wondering about your research process and how you came to write the essay, but then we were also talking about the weird contrast in the values when people say that but what I started wondering is just thinking about is the weirdness of someone being threatened by what's inside your head.
Yeah, it's like
it's your head. You can have whatever you want in there.
I don't even know what to
I think maybe
about it.
Your brain fizzled because it just doesn't make sense.
Yes, it doesn't. It's just, that's what I kept finding, like, while I was writing my writing 3, like, going more in depth about it, I guess that's kind of like where I came up with writing 3, was because I was bullied for believing in God. And then I was like, well, these people are like hating on God and like bullying other people kind of who believe in God, I guess. And it was just like people's values are so messed up that they have to like hate on someone who maybe this thing saved their life, maybe believing in God saving their life, maybe like having this specific religion save their life in a like specific sense. And it's just like, it doesn't make sense. And it just, I could talk so long about it, but I don't want to, I'd get too angry and I don't want to start getting too angry. So.
I understand that. I could see how the research process would kind of wander on then, because it's a really, really big, complicated, abstract topic.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about where you're headed next semester. What kind of classes are you going to take, and where are you headed in the long run?
So I'm actually taking, I think it's Honors Comp 2. So I'm taking another writing class because it also goes along with like my scholarship, but also this class has just like kind of changed my view on writing, I guess, because I enjoy it a little bit more. I kind of, even though I kind of write all my essays last minute, I guess, but it's still like something I enjoy doing research. I enjoy getting in and diving into something that I care deeply about. And so that's kind of why I decided to take it, because writing is just, sometimes it's a good way to let out emotions or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also taking a psychology class, and I did take a psychology class at my high school. It was provided for us, and my brother also took like an online LCC psychology class last year. So he kind of told me about it, and I can kind of like ask him about it. And so that kind of makes that easy. And then I'm taking history class because it's a requirement.
I'm sure it'll be lovely.
I don't like history.
History can be fun, Lauren.
Yeah.
Well, like my history teachers have ruined it for me.
Oh my gosh.
So
That
it's
will
just,
change.
like,
It will.
Yes, I hope so. But
Go in with a curious mind.
That's right.
and so yeah, I'm only taking 3 classes, but that's my
right.
semester.
That sounds good. What about you, Zoe?
I'm also taking the second part of this writing class, and I think I have the same psychology class as you.
I think we're taking like almost all of the same classes.
Yeah, I think so too. The history one's online though,
Mhm.
so we won't get to see each other. Maybe we can sit in the library together.
Yeah,
That'll be fun.
definitely.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so I'm taking the history class, and then I'm also taking algebra. Yeah, so kind of more general stuff. This semester I took 3 childhood development classes because I'm hoping to teach elementary school at some point. So yeah, I called an academic advisor last semester, and she was like, here's the classes. And there were 3 childhood development classes. I was like, this is kind of a lot for my first semester, but I really enjoyed it. So it'll be a different vibe in the spring.
Yeah.
To not have any of that. I think, yeah, I'm going to miss it. So yeah.
All right. Lauren, do you have any last thoughts for maybe an incoming student? What would you suggest they do, or
Honestly,
they should know?
I haven't been the best student. I mean, I'm getting good grades.
Don't be like Lauren. No, I'm joking.
Staying up till like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
don't
bad.
do that. That's what I did last night. I'm a good student. Everything kind of comes easy to me. I don't like to say that, but everything comes easy to me. I went to good schools growing up, so I always had a better like opportunity to learn and better opportunity to like share my mind. But I get everything done on time. Don't like, even if the teacher is like, the deadline is this day, but like I'll give you more time. You do that a lot, but I still tend to turn it in because it's just
Most people do.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like just turn it in on the deadline because
More is coming.
more is coming. Like honestly, since August, I don't think I've ever not had homework for like, I've not done homework, but I've like never not had homework. And so just like get everything done, and just also like, I don't talk to my academic advisors, but you should probably talk to your academic advisors, or at least have people in your classes that like you can at least study with or like get along with or something like that, just to like be with, I guess, because you need people in your classes who will help support you, I guess, through the class, not just the professor. Like you want to have people who you can connect to. And that's like, I found that within this honors composition class. I didn't expect to become friends with Annabelle, Zoe, and Steven, but
Go Team Slaz.
yes, that's what we call ourselves, Team Slaz. But yeah, I didn't expect that. And so it was just find friends basically too. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Zoe?
I would say, yes, don't leave anything for the last minute. Plan ahead. And I guess just like be patient with yourself. I don't like Lauren was saying, I don't have to work super hard to get the things done on time, but I hold myself to a very high standard that I probably often don't need to. And then I just super stress myself out trying to meet my super high standard. So in some cases, it's okay to lower your expectations of yourself if you have a personality like me where you want to get, you know, the best on everything. And asking for help, it's hard. It takes humility, but asking for help is important. And yeah, as far as writing goes, I think that pep talk that you gave us the first few weeks about how writing sucks and you're going to hate yourself and you're going to hate writing. I was like, I love this lady so much. Like, this is how I feel about writing. And I always felt like a bad person for feeling like that. And then I'm like, no, like, it's okay to bribe yourself to be like, this sucks. Work on it for an hour and then you can have chocolate. Generally, I'd eat the chocolate and then work on it for an hour. But you know what? It still works.
Whatever works.
So yeah, just know it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but when you get through it and you get to the end, I felt a lot of satisfaction in turning it in, you know, 2 minutes before the deadline. I did it. And so
All right.
that's a good feeling.
Nice.
It's worth it.
Well, thank you both for coming in today. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and
Yeah,
talking.
thank you for asking
Yeah,
us
thank
questions.
you. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to our talented poets and authors.
Until next time, this has been Washington Square on Air.
where we showcase selections from Lansing Community College's literary journal,
The Washington Square Review,
A publication featuring writers from the Great Lakes State.
across the nation.
and around the world.
To find out more about the Washington Square Review,
Visit lcc.edu/WSR.
We hope you enjoyed listening.
as much as we enjoyed sharing.